He arrived alone. No entourage, no fanfare. Just a well-cut suit, a quiet air of authority, and eyes that had already seen how this would play out. The receptionist didn't even look up, just pointed to the standard form and said, "Sir, we don't offer upgrades without premium membership." He smiled, signed the form anyway, and took the key without a word. But what she didn't know was that the man she brushed off didn't need a suite. He owned the entire hotel. Some men come to make a scene. Some come to make a point. And when a man with power decides to stay silent, it's because he already has a plan. If this already has you hooked, stay. Because what happens next isn't just a lesson in status. It's a masterclass in respect. Subscribe to Endless Stories, where power reveals itself in the quietest of gestures. The lobby was sleek and modern. All marble floors and brushed gold accents that whispered luxury to those who needed to hear it. Leon Price didn't. He designed this place himself. Every curve of the chandeliers, every line of the front desk. But he didn't pause to admire his own work. Instead, he stepped through the revolving doors like any guest might. A leather overnight bag in one hand, phone in the other, his expression calm. The young receptionist didn't look up right away. She was busy adjusting her hair in the reflection of her computer screen. When she finally did glance up, her eyes flickered over him and just as quickly back down, as if he didn't warrant a second look. "Good afternoon, sir," she said, her tone polite but empty. "Checking in." Leon nodded once, quietly sliding the reservation confirmation across the desk. She barely skimmed it, typing slowly with manicured nails. "Standard room, one night. King bed. No upgrades available, I'm afraid. Our suites are reserved for premium members." He just smiled. "That's fine," he said, his voice low, smooth as silk but carrying an undertone that made her pause, though she didn't know why. She handed him the key card, forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Enjoy your stay." He took it, turned, and walked toward the elevators, his footsteps echoing softly in the vast lobby. Behind him, two other guests watched. A businessman in a navy suit leaned closer to his companion and whispered, "Probably just another traveling salesman. Looks sharp, though." His friend chuckled. "Yeah, but no membership, no upgrade. Poor guy." They didn't know who he was. They didn't see the way he moved. Like a man who had spent decades carrying the weight of expectations and never letting it show. Leon pressed the button for the top floor, the executive suite he'd built not for clients but for himself. He didn't need an upgrade. He had designed the place, owned it, loved it, but he didn't correct the receptionist. That wasn't his style. The elevator doors closed, a soft chime as the floor numbers blinked past. Leon leaned against the cool mirrored wall, his reflection staring back at him, calm, unshaken. He'd built this empire from the ground up, brick by brick, deal by deal. He knew every name on every doorplate, every handshake that had built every room. And yet, standing there in the hush of the lift, he realized something. It wasn't about the money. It was about respect. The kind of respect you can't demand, but you can command. The doors slid open to the penthouse floor, light spilling in from the massive windows that framed the city skyline. Leon walked down the hallway, key card in hand. He paused in front of the door marked Presidential Suite, the room they hadn't offered him, though he owned the entire building. He didn't knock. He didn't need permission. He slid the card into the reader and pushed the door open. Inside, the room was as he'd left it. Dark wood paneling, soft leather chairs, a bar stocked with the best bourbon money could buy, and on the wall a photograph of him, smiling, arms crossed, the founder and owner of this entire empire. He let the door swing shut behind him, exhaled softly. Some men built legacies with noise, others with quiet. Leon Price had always chosen the latter. He poured himself a drink, watched the city from the window as the sun dipped lower, and thought of the receptionist downstairs. She would learn in time, because respect wasn't given by birth or by money. It was given by those who knew the weight of silence and the power of names. Downstairs, the receptionist was still at her post, her fingers drumming against the desk as she stared at the reservation system without really seeing it. Her name was Marissa, She was good at her job, usually. She knew how to smile, how to offer small talk, how to make the hotel feel warm even as the marble floors and brass fixtures spoke of cool elegance. But today, there was a sliver of unease in the back of her mind. Something about the man she checked in, the one with the calm voice and the eyes that seemed to weigh every word she said. She pushed the thought aside. She had work to do. The manager would be by soon to check on the afternoon shift, and she wanted everything perfect. As if on cue, the manager, Thomas, emerged from his office, checking his watch. He was a stickler for appearances. Hair slicked back, suit tailored within an inch of its life. "How are we doing, Marissa?" he asked, scanning the empty lobby with mild disapproval. "Any issues?" She hesitated, then shook her head. "No, sir. All standard check-ins. One guest wanted an upgrade, but wasn't a premium member. I handled it." Thomas gave her a curt nod, already half turning away. "Good. Keep it tight. We have an investors' brunch tomorrow. Image is everything." She let out a breath, relieved to have done her job. She didn't see the way Thomas's eyes flicked toward the elevator, thoughtful, like a man remembering a name he didn't quite recognize. Upstairs, Leon settled into the leather chair by the window, the city lights just beginning to glow. He sipped his bourbon, let the warmth slide down his throat. It was a ritual for him. Whiskey at dusk, a quiet moment to remind himself how far he'd come from the boy who'd grown up in a two-bedroom house with peeling paint and dreams that seemed too big for the walls. He thought of his father's voice. "Son, the world won't always see you. That's why you have to see yourself." And Leon had, every step of the way. His phone buzzed once, a message from his assistant, Alicia. "Investor dinner confirmed for tomorrow. They're expecting you in the lounge at 7. He typed a single word in reply, "Noted." Then he stood, walked to the closet, and pulled out the tailored suit he'd wear to that meeting. Black, classic, the kind of cut that never had to shout to be noticed. Just like him. Back in the lobby, Marissa was helping a family check in. 2 kids, tired from travel, parents juggling bags and questions. She smiled warmly, answered every question with practiced charm. She didn't notice the older bellman who leaned closer as she handed over the keys. "You know who that was, don't you?" he murmured. Marissa frowned. "Who?" The bellman's eyes twinkled, a hint of a grin beneath the years. "Mr. Price, the man who built this place." Marissa's heart skipped. She looked up at the elevator bank, memory flashing back to the man in the charcoal suit with the quiet voice.
"No upgrade. No fas."
But every inch of him had carried the weight of ownership. She swallowed, color rising to her cheeks. I didn't know." The bellman shrugged. "He doesn't mind, but he never forgets." Marissa turned back to her computer, fingers trembling just a little. She understood, then, what the manager meant by image. But she also understood something deeper, that sometimes the most powerful man in the room isn't the one making noise. It's the one who doesn't need to. That night, the hotel lobby glowed with a soft hush as the last guests checked in and the evening staff took their places. Outside, the city pulsed with life, horns and laughter and footsteps echoing off glass towers. But inside, everything was measured calm. Leon stepped out of the elevator in his crisp black suit, shoulders set, expression composed. The jacket fit like it was made for him because it was. He paused at the entrance to the lounge, scanning the room with a quiet assurance. Conversations stopped for just a moment as heads turned his way, and though no one quite knew his name, they all recognized something in the way he carried himself. Marissa saw him, too, from behind the reception desk. She stiffened, instinctively smoothing her hair, her mind racing. She had read every file she could find in the hours since she learned his name. Leon Price, owner, founder, the man who had turned a crumbling property into the city's most sought-after address. She'd also seen the photo on the lobby's founder's wall, a plaque she'd walked past 100 times without noticing. She tried to catch his eye as he passed, her lips parting as if to apologize, but he didn't stop. He simply nodded, almost imperceptibly, and kept walking. In the lounge, Leon took his seat at a table near the back, his gaze calm as the waiter approached. "Good evening, Mr. Price," the young man said, bowing slightly. "May I bring you your usual?" Leon gave a small nod. "Yes, and a glass of the 18-year for the table." The waiter's eyebrows rose. "Of course, sir." It was the first sign of who Leon was, a quiet request that carried more weight than any title. As the waiter moved away, a man in a gray blazer at the next table leaned over. "Excuse me," he said. "You're Mr. Price, aren't you?" Leon met his eyes. "I am." The man smiled, half nervous. "I've heard about you. Your story, it's incredible. What you built here. I just wanted to say it's an honor to be in your hotel tonight." Leon inclined his head politely. "Thank you." He didn't say more. He didn't need to. Across the room, Thomas, the manager, was watching. His jaw tightened as he realized what was happening. The room had shifted, somehow. People who hadn't even noticed Leon's arrival were now glancing his way, measuring their voices, their posture, as if in his presence they needed to stand a little taller. Thomas cleared his throat and approached the table. "Mr. Price," he began, voice smooth. "I didn't realize you'd be joining us tonight. Is there anything I can do to make your stay more comfortable?" Leon's eyes lifted, calm and steady. "You can ensure the staff are trained to recognize every guest, Thomas. Not just the ones who ask for upgrades." Thomas paled slightly, mouth opening and closing. Leon didn't wait for an answer. He turned his attention to the view outside, city lights reflected in dark glass, each one a small reminder of the power he had built from nothing. Marissa watched all of it from behind the desk, her cheeks burning. She had seen the difference now, not just in how people moved around Leon, but in how he moved through them. Unbothered, unapologetic, powerful not because he declared it, but because he didn't need to. And in that quiet truth, she understood the lesson of the evening. Respect isn't asked for. It's earned. In the silence, in the patience, in the knowing. Later that evening, as the lounge began to empty and the glow of the city outside turned deeper, Leon remained in his seat. He watched the final guests drift upstairs, the laughter and clinking glasses fading with each closing elevator door. The waiter came to clear the last of the dishes, pausing as if to say something, but Leon shook his head gently. He wanted silence now. He wanted to sit in the place he had built, remembering the first night he stood in this very room when it was nothing but cracked plaster and peeling paint. He thought of the nights he'd stayed up, drawing floor plans by hand, fighting with lenders who never saw the vision in his eyes because all they saw was the color of his skin. He thought of how he had laid every stone of this empire, one steady breath at a time. Behind the front desk, Marissa was finishing her shift. She watched him through the glass walls of the lounge, her stomach tight. She knew she had made a mistake that afternoon. She knew it the moment the bellman spoke his name. And she knew it even more now, watching how the room shifted around him without him having to lift a finger. When she stepped outside for a breath of night air, she nearly jumped to see Thomas, the manager, already there, tie loosened, staring out at the street. "He didn't have to say it," Thomas murmured, not looking at her. "He didn't have to say a word. And yet everyone here will remember him longer than they'll remember the name of this hotel." Marissa swallowed. "I should have known," she said softly. "I should have looked closer." Thomas gave her a tired look. "We're all taught to look past the ones who don't demand attention. But that's exactly where you'll find the real ones." Upstairs, Leon stood slowly. He left a generous tip for the waiter, more than the young man probably made in a week, and moved to the elevator. As he rode up to the top floor, he felt the weight of the day settle into his shoulders like an old friend. Not heavy, just there, waiting. The suite door closed behind him with a soft click. He poured one final drink and stood at the window, watching the skyline burn gold against the night. And for the first time all day, he let himself smile. A small one, the kind that said he knew exactly who he was, and he didn't need anyone else to confirm it. Back in the lobby, Marissa lingered a moment longer, fingertips resting on the desk she'd cleaned and polished every night. She thought of the lesson she'd learned today, one that had nothing to do with hotel policy or customer service scripts. And when she finally turned to leave, she paused to glance at the founder's wall. For the first time, she didn't see just a photo. She saw the man in that photo, alive, breathing, and unafraid to walk quietly through his own kingdom. The next morning, the air was crisp with the promise of a new day. Leon woke before sunrise as he always had. Old habits, carried from years of discipline that didn't wash away with luxury or titles. He dressed in a tailored navy suit, the lines of the jacket as precise as the man who wore it. No tie, no flash, just quiet authority that didn't need to announce itself. He checked his watch once, then stepped out of the suite and into the hushed hallway. The hotel was just beginning to stir, housekeeping carts rattling softly, the faint smell of coffee drifting up from the kitchen. Downstairs, Marissa was already at her desk, hair neatly tied, eyes flicking to the computer screen as she rehearsed the morning check-ins in her mind. But when she saw him step from the elevator, she froze. For a breath, the world seemed to pause with her. Leon walked across the lobby with measured steps. He didn't hurry, didn't slow, just moved like a man who knew where he was going and why. Marissa's throat went dry. She wanted to apologize, to say something that would erase the small moment she'd let slip away yesterday. But the words caught in her chest, a weight she wasn't sure she had the right to lift. Leon reached the desk and paused. Their eyes met, hers wide with apology, his calm and unreadable. "Mr. Price," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Good morning, sir." He inclined his head slightly. "Morning." His tone was even warm but measured. And that was it.
No anger, no condemnation.
Just a moment that spoke of everything she had misjudged. Thomas, the manager, appeared at her side almost instantly, his steps too quick, his smile too bright. "Mr. Price, I trust your stay has been satisfactory." Leon looked at him, then past him to the brass plaque on the wall that bore his name. "The hotel is in good hands," he said simply. Thomas swallowed. "Thank you, sir." Leon's gaze softened, almost a glimmer of amusement beneath the quiet control. "Good hands," he repeated. "But never forget, it's the quiet details that tell the story of a place." He turned away then, his presence like a ripple in still water, impossible to ignore even after he was gone. Marissa exhaled shakily. She knew she would never forget this morning, or the lesson it carved deep into her understanding of the world. Respect isn't about the room you're given. It's about the way you carry yourself in any room at all. Leon stepped out into the morning light, the city waking up around him. He didn't pause to admire the building he had built, the one that still bore his name in brushed bronze letters. He didn't need to. The weight of ownership was in the quiet pride in his shoulders, the calm in his stride. He had nothing to prove to anyone, least of all to himself. As he disappeared into the bustling street, a delivery driver paused to hold the door open for him. "Morning, sir," the young man said, not knowing who Leon was, only that he carried himself like a man who belonged. Leon nodded, stepped through, and let the door close behind him. Some men demand recognition, others earn it, silently, completely, and without ever having to raise their voices. Leon didn't go far. He walked a few blocks down, the city already humming with morning commuters and the scent of fresh pastry from corner bakeries. He stopped at a small cafe, unassuming, with a red awning and a chipped sign that read Mocha's. It wasn't part of any chain. No fancy name, no social media buzz. But it was his. One of the first investments he'd made when he started building his empire. A place that reminded him of beginnings. Inside, the barista, a young woman with bright eyes and a warm smile, recognized him instantly. "Morning, Mr. Price," she said, already reaching for the mug she knew he liked best. "The usual?" He smiled, nodding. "Thank you." She set the coffee in front of him, black, no sugar, no cream. The way he liked it, the way he'd always liked it. He took a slow sip, the bitterness grounding him, reminding him that even as the world spun with titles and headlines, some things stayed simple, honest. Outside the window, the hotel's name glinted in the early light, a symbol of everything he'd built, but not the reason he woke up every morning. That reason was here in the quiet rituals, in the small gestures of respect, in the way the barista met his eyes and said, "Let me know if you need anything else," with real care. Not because he was the owner, but because he was a man who never forgot where he came from. Back at the hotel, Marissa watched guests stream in, some in crisp suits, some in rumpled jackets, all with their own stories. She greeted each with a new perspective, her words carrying the weight of what she had learned. It's not enough to smile. You have to see, really see. When she looked up at the founder's wall that afternoon, she didn't see a stranger anymore. She saw the quiet man who had walked through the lobby without demanding anything. The man who had reminded her, and everyone else, that true power doesn't shout. It stands. And in the lounge that night, as investors toasted to another year of success, the story of the man who had walked past them in silence, who had owned the place they sat in without ever needing to boast, echoed softly in their minds. Some of them would forget. Most of them would remember, because Leon Price had never needed to raise his voice to be heard. He had simply needed to walk through the door, one quiet step at a time. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. Maybe you felt it too. How silence can weigh more than any spoken word, and how quiet dignity never asks for respect. It commands it. If this story made you think about the way we see each other, about the quiet battles that never get headlines, share it. Because sometimes, it's the softest voices that echo the loudest, changing how we see the world, and maybe even how we see ourselves. Subscribe to Endless Stories so you never miss a moment where the quiet power of human dignity breaks through the noise. And remember, it's often in silence that we find the clearest truths.